Welcome to the podcast. Chris Graham and Ron Mullins here on Wednesday. We're going to talk some NASCAR news, but we're going to start with baseball just for this. Ron, a longtime Cincinnati Reds fan, and dating back to the Big Red Machine days when the Giants roamed the earth, the Johnny Benches and Joe Morgans and Pete Roses of the world, among others. I'm leaving
Right.
guys out there, but so news this week, Rod. Manfred, the MLB commissioner, saying posthumously that Pete Rose is no longer banned from baseball. I guess his point was you can't be banned from baseball if you're dead. So, okay, so that's, Pete will never be in the Hall of Fame during his lifetime because he passed away a few months ago. But this opens the door, it seems, for Pete Rose, who is by far the most deserving guy to be in the Hall of Fame who's not there to get in the Hall of Fame. Him and Shoeless Joe Jackson also. I mean,
Yeah.
because Shoeless Joe passed away a long time ago. But I want to get your thoughts. Pete Rose can now get that recognition. What do you think about this posthumous possibility?
I hate it. I hate it. I think it's I read this morning one thing that I think kind of summed up how I felt in one way. Manfred may have tried to make it look good, or at least, that he was caring enough about Rose and so forth. But it's like you said, he still did it while, after Rose has died. So Rose is not going to see that possibility of ever being in the hall himself and being able to live that out. Uh, I think it was a money grab. I think it's just one of those things of MLB cashing in on being able to say, "Hey, they reinstated Pete Rose," capitalizing. I think it was also kind of oddly timed that tonight, as Pete Rose died in Cincinnati. I think that kind of was another thing that kind of tipped me off and makes me wonder if this was just something that Manfred was like, if I make a decision, maybe these people will go away. We're not going to go away. I can just tell you that right now. Um, he should have been in the Hall of Fame. He should have been, but I know it's the same thing we've talked about before, and I've talked about with other people. He bet on baseball. There were times that I think he bet in 4 games. There was a pitcher, I believe it was Bill Gullickson. I think it was pitching, and he bet on all 4 of those games. And John Dowd, who big time with the Trump administration, has been with the Trump administration, piled up a bunch of information on him. I mean, everything from the gambling to, I think, debts, all these things, even going back as far as interviewing people that had said that he had carried on illicit affairs with underage young ladies, young girls in Cincinnati. I think it was a smear job from the get go. I think if they had simply, and I think I've told you this before, I think that if they had taken Pete off to the side and said, "Hey, let's try to do this quietly. You're a legend. Let's just try to see if we can't work something out here and keep you from getting into the spotlight." And I think Rose would have probably bit. He would have probably taken that because to me it was sort of like intervention with an alcoholic almost. That they were there to kind of, that they would have been there. Major League Baseball wasn't there, and so it was one of those things of smear him. That's kind of the way I felt about it.
So many things to unwrap there. We could probably do a whole hour podcast and not even get touched on
Mm-hmm.
all the surfaces of just more than the surface of this. But I mean, okay, so it's one thing if you don't want Pete Rose coaching in baseball, managing baseball, coaching young hitters. I mean, whatever the case may be, that's one thing. And so this is the responsibility here goes not just to Rob Manfred, the most recent
Mm-hmm.
commissioner, all the way back to Bart Giamatti and Fay Vincent and the others who've held that position. Uh, but the Baseball Writers Association of America too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they set their own rules for how they decide to vote guys into the Hall of Fame or not. And I mean, Pete Rose is a glaring omission. Shoeless Joe Jackson, I mentioned, a guy who was among the guys from the 1919 Black Sox team, as they came to be
Mm-hmm.
known, banned for throwing the World Series, even though, yeah, Shoeless Joe Jackson took $5,000 from gamblers. $5,000 in today's money would probably be like $1 million. Who knows? Like the
Right.
inflation value of that. But he hit 375, had the only home run in that series, did not come in an error in the field, no base running blunders of note. So he took the money and then played hard. Uh,
Yep.
But career he retired as the third leading hitter in Major League Baseball history. Now, with counting the Negro Leagues records, he's still the
Hmm.
fourth highest batting average in Major League history. He played as a barnstormer for many years after being banned formally from Major League
Hmm.
Baseball, because that's the way he made a living. Um, you know, again, keeping them away from the game in terms of being a coach or anything else, being able to make money from the game is one thing,
Hmm.
but it's hard to say that
Yeah.
Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson. I'll even throw in it's hard to say that Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens don't deserve it. It's a Hall of Fame. You're talking
Hmm.
about the play. They don't have to be great guys. We're not talking about the Hall of Saints. We're talking about
Right.
the best players who ever played baseball. And Pete Rose, the hit king. He was on the field for the most as a player. He had the most regular season wins by far of
Hmm.
any major league player who ever played the game. He's one of the best. He's on the short list of one of the 5 or 10 best players who ever played baseball. He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and you mentioned something else too. It really glaringly when you made this remark and you talked about it, the baseball writers. That's going to be the big part of it right there. And going back to talking with Johnny Bench at Bristol, and we were talking about Veda Pinson then. Veda is up for the nomination, I think, this year for the Hall of Fame. He is up for it. The question is, will he get enough votes? I mean, if you look at his stats and so forth, and you look at what he did, um, he deserves to be there. I think he deserves to be there. Probably one of the best players the Reds had at one time, and then he bounced around to a couple of other teams. But I just think it's a disservice to him. And we've talked about Dave Concepcion, but Tony Perez is on this baseball. See the it's sort of like the old timers or something, but it's the veterans and
What they
yeah,
used
the
to
old
call the
vets.
Veterans Committee.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
the Old
veterans
Timers
committee.
Committee.
I
Yeah.
know Tony Perez is on that committee. Ozzie Smith is on that committee, and Johnny Bench brought up Ozzie Smith to me when I asked him the question at Bristol and so forth. He said, here you've got Dave Concepcion. And it's like Ozzie Smith was almost of the attitude of, no, I don't want anybody in the Hall of Fame that's almost as good or better than me. I want to take all the glory out of it. He said it's Ozzie is Ozzie. And I understand that. But these guys in a lot of ways, some of them mean very well in what they do. They're trying to at least preserve some sort of sanctity, I guess, in one way about baseball. But in others, I think they're also thinking of themselves. They're thinking of their ego before it's over with.
So you mentioned Veda Pinson will be on the ballot this fall for the Veterans Committee, the former Old Timers Committee. Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson can't be on that ballot until
Right.
2027.
Hmm.
Um, Good news, I guess, if there's any good news to this, is that it's not writers who determine now, those snooty writers who don't want to put people in the Hall of Fame that they think
Right.
are going to besmirch the reputation of baseball. It's baseball players, it's baseball
Hmm.
guys. And they've been a little, they only need 12 out of 16 votes, 75% of those 16 people. So expect some hard lobbying to be done over the next 2 years for Pete Rose, as far as
Hmm.
that goes.
Yeah, I think so too. And the I don't know. They're going to be out of their league, I think, when they try to look at Shoeless Joe, because I mean, these guys knew Pete Rose. Most of
Yes.
these guys that's on the Veterans Committee knew him. They're just going back, having to come up with numbers with what they knew of Shoeless Joe. That's what they're going to have to come up with. And I you mentioned the barnstorming thing about baseball and so forth, but it's so sad the end that Shoeless Joe had of being a liquor store salesman,
Yeah.
essentially running his own liquor store there toward the very end. And he looked bitter. I saw a picture of him there at the store, older man. He looked old when he was in his prime, when he was playing baseball for the Sox back in the World Series, and then he got banned out of it. But he just old looking, and just looked like he had put in too many days, and it was just like it was time to go home. And I just felt bad looking at that picture. I've seen Ty Cobb the same way. I don't look at Ty Cobb in the same way that I do Shoeless Joe. Yeah, Ty Cobb was a great baseball player, but you mentioned it, you said it best. This isn't a Hall of Saints,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be. And the even if we even wanted to sit down and look at the Constitution of the United States, the founding fathers, we've got people in Washington that have this belief that think that the founding fathers were saints. They were perfect. They were just as human as you and I. And sometimes with a little bit more, things about them going against them in certain ways than it would be going forward. So, I agree with you. I just think it's not. They're not going to make it into a Hall of Saints, but they deserve to at least be recognized, for what they've done.
The only thing that most people who are alive today know about Shoeless Joe Jackson is that he was a character in the movie Field of Dreams. Ray Liotta's not even alive anymore to
No,
advocate for him. So I mean that's where
yeah,
we are with that. But yeah, let's it's hey, it's a step in the right direction. So
yeah,
okay.
it is.
The nexus for us to talk about that is that you mentioned there's the Bristol game coming up involving the Cincinnati Reds, the
Right.
team that you followed since you were a kid. You mentioned you talked to Johnny Bench at Bristol about the Reds and Braves game coming up in a couple of months. All right, that's my excuse for talking about Pete Rose on a NASCAR podcast. Now let's get to NASCAR. Kyle Larson with his third victory of the season. Got a couple three-win guys this year. Last year, if I remember right, it seemed like we had all these, every week we had a different winner, and it seemed like
Yep.
so many one-time winners. This year, we're seeing a few guys dominating the field, and Larson definitely one of them. And of course, at a time when he's getting ready to be in the real spotlight with his attempt at the double coming up here in a couple weeks.
I can't describe any more into words what I thought of the race on Sunday. Boring. It was just boring. There was no fun with it. There was no thrill with it. And yeah, it was a lot like Bristol. It was a lot like Bristol. I mean, you had Larson who just dominated this entire time. But it's like, Clint Boyer and them got up there. Clint Boyer had a whale of a start to the race. I don't know if you heard about it or not, but he called Kyle Larson just about everything under the book except for Kyle Larson. He called him Kyle Busch. He regarded him as all these other things when he's trying to talk to him on the radio. That was funny, but it still gives us the impression, though, that maybe Kyle Busch is right about something, and that is these cars are not fun. They're just something they get into, they climb in, they drive. It pretty much does it for themselves. Um, it's kind of taken the humanity out of it. And I never thought I'd find myself saying that, because I've been defending this next generation car. I liked it. I liked the concept for what they were going to do of the engines and so forth. But it gets back to that same thing we've talked about before, and that is if you ain't cheating, you ain't winning, one way or the other. And it just to me, it takes the humanity of that weekend grease monkey, that garage guy that wants to sit there and work on a car and stuff and make it just 2 or 3 RPMs faster than what it was to begin with. Everybody's just set. I mean, we're still talking Talladega. I mean, if you look back at Talladega, nobody wants to be able to get out and nobody wants to be able to get out, make a good run and get some air. And I watched a documentary the other night. Actually, it was I think it was an old special that they had on NASCAR. And Earnhardt, they asked Earnhardt Sr., they asked him, they said, why do you enjoy driving? I know you enjoy driving short tracks, but why do you enjoy driving super speedways? He said, do you know something about the air? Can you feel it? Is there something about it? He says, no, I just, I stick my nose out. I get enough, a little bit of air and stuff to find out where I can go. And then it's make your move. He said, the rest of these guys want to just lag back and they don't want to do anything. That's the biggest problem I think we've got right now with some of the drivers. You've got some that are aggressive and they want to get to the front. Then you've got others are not having any luck whatsoever at being aggressive. And, I go down this list and I start looking, hey, we have to say Denny Hamlin did not have a good day at Kansas. Finished in 36th place, 196 laps, only what he was able to complete. His drivetrain broke. So that's the big thing that you need out of this whole thing. And the Toyotas just didn't do well on Sunday at all. Bubba Wallace was in an accident. You had Eric Jones who had trouble. He got knocked out and got down to in the 32nd position. And then Riley Herbst, Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs had been doing well up until this point. And then now he's just started over the top and he started back down the hill again is what he's doing. And now he's finishes 28th this past week at Kansas. So, there's a lot of guys that should be up near the top and should be running at the front. Brad Keselowski's one of them too. But what did Brad Keselowski do? He got involved in an accident, took him out of contention. So we saw some people wreck. We saw some things happen on Sunday, but it wasn't the race that we were hoping for. We were hoping for some beating and some banging. Yeah, that's what I would like to do. At least see that, but we didn't see that. We didn't see it as much as they should be fighting for at least a win on that track.
The only drama, such as it was the final long green flag run
Mhm.
there at the end, Larson was trying to manage his right side tires.
Right.
Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney made a little bit of a run. They cut the margin down from 2 seconds to just inside of a second.
Hmm.
But that was the only drama we really had. 49 lap green. I mean, that's the thing too. You're not getting a lot of resets. That makes it hard,
Hmm.
for the field to reset when there's a wreck or there's a caution or something like that. Uh, you didn't get those, and so I mean, it's
No.
that is what it is. A lot of so you mentioned in your story about this Rod about the race that Kyle Larson is in the middle. So I alluded to this in the
Hmm.
middle of a very busy stretch right now. And I left out a lot of things when I said, oh yeah, he's also getting ready for the double here in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
What's what does Kyle Larson have going on right now in addition to everything else that we know about?
Dirt sprint car racing is what he loves to do when he's not at the regular track and the cup tracks competing. He loves to go around and just, it's sort of like barnstorming. He goes around, runs a couple of races when he's on a dirt track or somewhere near a dirt track, and then he comes back in and he runs a race. Well, this week, and actually 2 weeks, what's leading up to the Indianapolis 500 and the Coke 600, he's going to be racing his dirt car. Then on top of that, he's going to be qualifying and practicing at Indy, which he was practicing today, which we'll have an update on here a little bit. And then also, besides that, he's got to go to North Wilkesboro this weekend to compete in the All Star race. Then he's going to be back in Indianapolis again, doing some more running and some more practice and I guess qualifying, some more tweaking of the car, so to speak. And then we get ready for the granddaddy of all the races and stuff with the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 on the same day. And he's going to run both of them. And he's going to try to finish up the Indy 500 in enough time and hopefully with no rain delays or anything, jump in a jet and fly at breakneck speed down to Charlotte, come in and land, then get off there at the airport and then be helicoptered into Charlotte Motor Speedway. That's what they were doing last year. That's what they hoped to be able to go and put him in the car last year, and they called the race. And he didn't even have a chance to get out and do one lap in a cup car. It was unfortunate, but he's hoping for better luck this time around. I hope it doesn't rain either race. I would love to see both of these races go, green, no stop, no red flag stops or anything because of the weather. But we're in May. Things like this are going to happen, and I know you guys are having a lot of rain up there right now, a lot of flooding in some places. We're kind of dodging that this time around. We're getting some rain down here, but when you have a race at Indianapolis, it can change things, and it's got to be a gully washer too for them to be able to put a race on hold. They can race for a little bit, but they have to put that race on hold. But when you go to Charlotte, the Cup cars, it comes to a standstill. They don't bring the street tires out for this one that much. They don't bring them out that much, but we'll have to wait and see what they're going to do.
I think I would love to remind fans just to put it in perspective what he's trying to do. I mean, okay,
Hmm.
so imagine if you're just an average person out there and you drive 500 miles in a day, and of course you're not driving 500 miles going a couple hundred miles an hour plus
Right.
in Indy, but you're 500 miles, 500 miles driving. Then that'll wear you out.
Hmm.
Flying from Indianapolis to Charlotte would wear a lot of people. Just getting on a plane and flying from Indianapolis to Charlotte will wear a lot of people out. That's a couple
Yep.
hour flight. 600 miles then around the track in Coca Cola at the 600 in Charlotte. That'll wear a lot. So he's doing all that in one day in about what a 10-hour period, maybe roughly, probably
Yeah.
less than that. He's doing 500 miles of driving. He's getting on a plane. He's flying. He's helicoptering. He's driving another 600 miles in one day. If I did that in a month, it would wear me out. So, so anybody who wants to question whether or not a NASCAR driver, IndyCar driver is an athlete, do that and then get back to me.
Yeah, who was it? Was it Donovan McNabb that questioned the athleticism of NASCAR drivers?
Yeah,
There's no big thing. They just get in a car and stuff. Guys, imagine this: you're driving 500 laps, 500 miles at Indy, and then here you are. There's no Bucky's along the way. There's no clean restrooms. There's none of this stuff of Bucky's. You have to drive 500 miles and then you'll get on a jet. And probably in all likelihood, I would say that they're going to probably give him some IVs,
yeah,
probably, some things to keep him going. They'll also have him on oxygen and everything else because, yeah, it's going to be a stressful thing. And they're going to probably give him that oxygen burst that he'll need for some energy to make him be able to get through that race. And then by the time he gets down to Coca Cola 600 in Charlotte, this is 600 miles. This is an endurance race. 500 miles is kid stuff, but that final 100 miles at Charlotte is the kicker right there. And there's no Bucky's there either. I mean, if you got to go to the bathroom, you're going to have to go to the bathroom. That's just all there is to it. And you just have to hope that you've got other things taken care of. But, you're going to be so hot in that car too. Even if you do something in your suit and everything, as Dale Jr. has alluded to before, it's going to evaporate. It's going to evaporate because the heat is so much. And we haven't even got to Indiana summers yet or Indiana springs. And also, how hot Charlotte can be at times.
yeah, yeah. Hey, listen. So this podcast is shaping up to be Pete Rose and Kyle Larson. But let's talk. You alluded to it a minute or two ago. First day of Indy practice. How do things go for Kyle there?
Well, let's take a look at it here and let's just see what's going on. I just wanted to pull this up. It was weather shortened today. I know one thing, but they had some light, persistent rain up there. 34 cars were vying for the 33 car grid for the May 25th race. They had a lightning alert ultimately stop Tuesday's practice, but they had some rain today and so forth. But Larson seemed like he's pretty satisfied with things. He was happy. He hadn't hit the wall. So that's a good sign right there. So I think the least we get out of this whole thing will probably be the best for Larson. He ran 45 laps on Tuesday, I think is what he did. Ran his best lap of 221.207 miles an hour. But get this, he was 24th fastest in the field. So he's got a lot of ground to make up between now and qualifying and, of course, the 500 race. He's got a lot to be able to make up for.
Let's we're going to talk about, of course, the All-Star race at
Mm-hmm.
North Wilkesboro this weekend. We'll finish up the show there. But let's go to an off-track business news thing. We've been talking about the TV dealings,
Mm-hmm.
the etc. Amazon is talking about what it has coming up in terms of its NASCAR coverage, and one positive sign for them on the economic side of the TV equation. What's the latest there?
They're nearly sold out of ad inventory for 5 races that Amazon is going to be covering this year. That is almost unheard of. I mean, I can see the Daytona 500 and I can see some of the races on Fox, getting a quick sellout and things. But this is Amazon's first jump into this kind of thing. Even though they're going to have Dale Jr. on board and things. Um, this is big news because in the fact of the way that Danielle Carney puts it, they are nearly sold out of their NASCAR and also their women's sports advertising inventory. Of course, NASCAR will begin their coverage on, or at least running on Amazon on Memorial Day weekend. Fox will not have it. You'll find it on Amazon with the Coca Cola 600. She says that the inventory is nearly sold out across the 5 races set for Prime. She said more than anything else, we're excited about that strong interest again in driving new advertisers, and we have a new format, she says. Now, we'll have to wait and see what the format is going to be, but she described a two-box commercial format that will run throughout the races. So we're going to have to wait and see. I know we're talking two-box commercial format. We'll just have to find out what all that's going to be featured. And I'm sure what they're trying to do is they're trying to customize their content a little bit more because guess what? Amazon has NFL programming too. And what better way to get the young kid on the block with NASCAR for 5 races as a little bit of an experiment to see how things are going to work, and then turn around and say, let's do the same thing for the NFL. And then it kind of ties in a little bit more universality, I guess, if you want to call it that, with the sport and with Amazon making coverage of this.
One thing I've liked about some of the things we've seen from the streamers, it's sometimes it can be annoying if your favorite baseball team is on the Apple game of the night or the
Mm-hmm.
YouTube game of the night, and you have to go somewhere else to find your game. You don't go to your regular place, but they do some different things, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Amazon can do with NASCAR as well. I mean, there have been some innovations added by the Netflixes and the Amazons and the YouTubes
Mm-hmm.
to the way they do MLB, the way they do NFL. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what they can do here. And some of these things that are done end up coming into the mainstream coverage.
Yeah.
The little innovations can get there as well. So we'll see. I think it could be fun to see what they do.
I kind of expect this to kind of be, like I said, this will kind of, whet the appetite for some sports fans. How you receive. We're going to see if in these 5 races, and especially this Coca Cola 600, we're going to see if there's the Netflix curse involved. And you remember the big match, with Tyson and McGregor, I guess is who it was, and then gosh, everything started just falling apart for Netflix and stuff. The bandwidth got so low that people were being dropped; they couldn't figure it out. I'm sure Amazon's got that base covered, and I don't think they're going to have a huge run on it as much as they did Tyson and McGregor, but it could be a very popular race because there may be a lot of people right now trying to figure out, hey, Kyle Larson, let's see how he does at Charlotte. We know what he's done at Indy for the day. Let's see what he's capable of pulling off at Charlotte.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. You got a question those bandwidth issues. Yeah, that's something that hopefully they'll have in
Hmm.
check by a couple weeks from now. So, all right, North Wilkesboro Speedway gets the All-Star race again, non-points race. But
Hmm.
what can we expect out of this weekend's action?
Hard racing, tempers flaring one way or the other, because this is one of those things of where the challenges begin. You're not raced normal in an all-star race. This is for all the marbles. I mean, used to it was, gosh, $1 million. I think it was like $1 million in a package and stuff. Besides, like the Winston Million, what they used to have. That's when the tobacco money was big. That's when it helped a lot. Now it's a little bit of a different story. So, you've got all this different these different things that's going to be taking place this week at down there around North Wilkesboro and around the Charlotte area. Just give or take here, they're going to have a pit crew challenge this season is what they're going to have. The winning pit crew will get $100,000 bonus and a trophy that'll be awarded to the winner of the pit challenge, the pit crew challenge. So that could be really fun to watch. I know that gives me a chance to kind of look and see. I don't know if you've noticed it from watching some of the NASCAR races. Have you noticed how many former college football players are serving as
Oh yeah.
jack men or tire men or something like that? That has surprised me. I've seen a lot of these guys, big, huge, burly guys that played. I think I saw some people on there this past week from guy was from Elon, played for Elon University and so forth. And I'm like, wow, now we're starting to see these football players get involved in this. I know a guy that he went to J.J. Kelly and Wise, and at one point he was a gas man for Danica Patrick, and he has also served as a gas man. But I would have never dreamed it, but it's something he loves. And what does he do? He lugs that big can of fuel and locks it in and puts it in there and stuff. And I think I asked him on chat one night and stuff. I said, "How heavy is that?" He said, "It's heavy. It's really heavy." And it's the pivot. It's the pivot and getting it up there and being able to shift it, and it all comes out, into the port, the way it's supposed to. That's a challenge for these guys. But this is going to be a big event, I think, with this pit crew challenge. They usually do this indoors. They've had it indoors, I know, down in Charlotte before, right prior to the 600, at some different points. But this will be good. And then also they have a quick all-star and open format rundown right here. And this is what I'll be publishing tomorrow of some of the news and notes that'll be coming out. The qualifying for the Open and the All-Star Heat races will work the same way, with the Open cars going first, followed by the All-Stars, 3 laps, including a pit stop on lap 2. And then lap 2 pit stops include the Pit Road Challenge. That's how they're going to do this. Fastest 4 tire pit stops, empty fuel cans based on pit loop to pit loop times to determine the winner and the pit road selection. So it's not going to be just the pit crew, it's how well you get that car out of there and how well you do things to get them back out on the track. So that's part of it. So for the heat races, 75 laps each. The All-Star Open is going to be 100 laps. There'll be a caution at lap 50. There'll be one overtime attempt if necessary. And then we go to the All-Star format, which it has been in the past, I think like 200 laps. They've gone to 250 now. And so with that one, all the laps count. The All-Star caution around lap 100. Optional promoters caution that this has to occur before lap 220, but will expire if a natural caution occurs anywhere after lap 200. So we could throw that out of the window. That's like one of those gimmies of a NASCAR thrown caution, just for, to check tires to see how they are. And overtime rules will apply in this one. And who's eligible for this? Well, winners in 24 or 25, past All-Star winners who are full-time, past Cup champions who are full-time, and 3 drivers will advance from the Open, and they'll go from All-Star Open winner, All-Star Open runner-up, and fan vote winner. So there's a lot of people going to be voting for their favorite driver to be able to make it into this mix, and then they'll be ready for the Open. And that's what's going to be fun, and we'll see probably a lot of beating and a lot of banging and a lot of tempers flaring, because now I don't think this is one of their standard NASCAR that they race every week with. This is a car that they have especially for, or at least I understand it to be a car that they, bring there to that. But they're also cautioned too. Don't wreck the car. Don't tear the car up. Don't do this. Don't do that. So we're going to have to wait and see. Here's an interesting number though. I found this to be shocking, and this just stood out to me more than anything else. Toyota is winless in the last 7 All-Star races. I would have thought that number would have been up there. Chevrolet has won 4 of the last 7. Ford has won the other 3. Joey Logano winning last year. So, Toyota needs to get in the winner's circle when it comes to this. Winless in the last 7 All-Star races. That could be a big shot in the arm for the Toyota program if they're able to get things going. And where else but North Wilkesboro, the storied track that they have redone, they have managed to save from going to pieces and just eroding down to nothing. It's going to be fun. This race will be fun. It's kind of like your old Saturday night shootout, except it's going to be on Sunday night, and it'll be televised on Fox, and that'll be Fox's last bit of coverage of the series that weekend, and then before Amazon takes over on the next following weekend in the Coca Cola 600.
It's just thinking back to something you said earlier about the pit crew challenge
Mm-hmm.
and how many college football players are involved in that. I'm just remembering you said that, and it triggered a memory in me, covering what was then called the Belk Bowl. I'm not sure. I think maybe the
Mm-hmm.
Duke's Mayo Bowl was the one in Charlotte now. UVA football was in the Belk Bowl in 2018, and part of the bowl game experience when you play in Charlotte is they take the teams out to
Yep.
the speedway, and they do some fun things with them, and they did some pit crew stuff with them, and this has been 7 or 8 years, whatever it is. And thinking back, I mean, yeah, it kind of you kind of makes sense. You're talking about the big heavy gas cans. I mean, the quickness that is involved with getting around the car when it pulls into the pits and getting the tire changed and everything else. I mean, I can see it being a NASCAR team owner and saying, let's get some athletes out there who can do this stuff.
Yep.
I mean, let's see. And I have read anecdotally, over the years, a story here, story there about programs that try to get some of these former college athletes, especially the big football players,
Hmm.
to think about being part of this. And yeah, I mean, I kind of saw that a few years ago, and so in that context, doesn't surprise me that you're seeing this influx.
Well, and I saw something else this past weekend that I thought was really interesting, and I hadn't really thought about it. How do you handle a jack from just going and jacking up the car, one or maybe two big good pushes, to get the car up and be able to lift it up? But how do you go and handle one of those big heavy duty jacks and be able to get it from point A to point B? And that is to get it over to the other side of the car. And I did not know there was a technique involved. Some of these guys will go and they don't carry it. I mean, you don't used to. Some of them would pick it up and they'd take off and go to the other side. But the time in the pits, that's costly, by just doing a couple of, around the front end of the car and then going there and throwing the jack under, you may miss where you're at. You may have to reset it. You may go and you may get it up just enough or lower it too quick and then drop it down. And then you're stuck there trying to get the tire and get the jack back up and everything. But these guys were almost to the point of where they were. It reminded me sometimes of basketball, of where you go and you would take the back part of your arm and just grab the pole itself of the jack, the handle, and you put it behind you and you swing it. And then you swing it behind you. And then as you're coming around the front of the car, it's swinging back to where it's going ready to go underneath the car. And you've got to have some coordination to be able to pull something like that off. And it's the feel. It's the feel of the jack too. I mean, it's that's just incredible that they can go and some of these guys can go and just lift a jack up and they can carry it, go around, but most of them will do that backhand grab. And when they come around there, I mean, they've got it ready. They've got it ready to drop and put underneath, put it at that point where they've got it marked, where they have to lift that car up. And then probably about two pumps and two strong pumps at that gets that car up and they're ready to change tires on it real quick. That's unreal.
We talked about how the margin in this week's race was less than a second. It was like it
Hmm.
was seven tenths of a second. A couple pit stops, point 0.3, point 0.4 there. That's the difference in winning and coming in second. So for those, again, this is just your latest reminder within this podcast. You want to say NASCAR is just a bunch of good old boys driving around in circles? Yeah, it's a little bit more than that. So uh,
Yeah. It was at one point or another. It was a bunch of good old boys at one time or another driving around. And then you had your influences come in from other places. AJ Foyt, Tim Richmond, some of the others, Mario Andretti, they came in and it almost like it evened out the sport, so to speak. It kind of made it, they all respected each other. That was what was fun about it. They respected each other. They respected Foyt. I saw a picture the other night of Ned Jarrett. I think it was the late 60s, probably about maybe mid 60s. And you had Junior Johnson, who still had dark color hair, wasn't white, but, had the flat top. It was a group picture of all these guys. And who was sitting on the front? AJ Foyt. And I mean, who would have thought it? Who would have thought that? But AJ Foyt just loves racing. That's all he's ever known, pretty much.
they're all looking for where they can get a tenth of a second here, a hundredth of a second there. And yeah, yeah. So the good old boys knew what they were doing, but and if they were still racing now, they'd be embracing this. They'd be looking for that second here and second there. So
You remember when 18 seconds or 20 seconds used to be considered too long as a pit stop or just the right amount of time for a pit stop somewhere in that neighborhood? Now we're down to what, 10, 11 seconds, sometimes even less than that. If it's just going in for fuel and maybe a change of a tire or one set of tires, they could do it in less than 10 seconds. That's almost, I would have never dreamed that 15 or 20 years ago.
and they're still thinking they're still thinking of ways to get it down. I mean, they
Yep.
always are. They're always looking for innovations there. So Yeah, it's a sport, no doubt about it. Hey, Rod, as always, thank you for your time, your insight. Look forward to talking to you again next week.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thanks.